Before we get down in the nitty-gritty, because you and I always go down the rabbit hole a bit, can we start off for the people that are tuning in that just don't know much at all about Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Or all they know are kind of the seedy stories that sometimes gets bounced around on the internet, and they don't really understand what it is, whether it's old Silk Road stories from years ago, or this or that. For people that maybe are hearing this for the first time, how do you explain Bitcoin?
So Bitcoin is a currency that exists on the internet, that is created on the internet, that really serves the needs of the internet generation. It does not belong to any government. It's not controlled by any bank. Bitcoin isn't a company or product or a service. It's an internet protocol. It's a method of communication, just like we say the web or email, and that doesn't belong to anyone. It's a shared common public good on the internet. Bitcoin is a digital currency and payment system that is a shared good, and it is controlled collectively by the participants in the network. And creating a currency that does not belong to a nation seems weird at first. But then again, we used to have airlines that only existed for one nation and had the flag on the tail, right? Flag carriers, they call them. And phone companies that were monopolies in one nation and had the flag on them. And now that seems absurd. And I think within 20 years, the idea of national currencies as the only option will seem absurd. What Bitcoin is a completely global and open system of money that anyone can participate in without asking permission, without registering for an account or showing ID. All they need to do is download an app. Just like if you want to participate on the web, all you need to do is download a browser. If you want to participate in Bitcoin, all you need to do is download the Bitcoin wallet. And the moment you do so without registering with anyone or creating an account, you can send and receive Bitcoin. And why would you send or receive Bitcoin? Well, for many people who live in Western advanced nations who have debit cards and tap to pay, and it's not really necessary. But in a broader sense, we live in a world that is very fragmented, where money faces borders, very hard borders, strict lines of demarcation between countries and currencies. And you have these national currencies that are badly managed by governments and banks in countries where there is very little difference between a government, a bank, and an organized crime syndicate. All three are the same. The governments are organized crime syndicates.
Zimbabwe,
the banks,
maybe, case in point.
And dozens of countries are like that.
Right.
And so what happens when they have a crisis is they take the entire population hostage with them. They shut down the borders. They create currency controls. You can't withdraw money from the ATMs. You can't exchange money for another currency. You go with the ship and sink down with it. And what's interesting is that Bitcoin is one of those things that actually offers a safe haven in that particular situation. But it also allows people who have never had a bank account to connect to a global financial system simply by downloading an application on a very, very simple smartphone or even using text messaging. And there's more than 4 billion people who are in that situation. So the vast majority of the human population have not no banking, but very limited banking facilities, single currency with strict conditions on what they can import and export. And Bitcoin bypasses all of that. It gives everybody a currency that is open and global. And so that creates some very interesting conditions in the world. It allows us to create a kind of unified financial system that exists outside of the mandates of government, that is completely private and is very empowering for individuals.
And it scares the hell out of governments and banks.
It scares the hell out of governments that find it peculiar to have people in control of their own money, at which point you should really ask yourself, what kind of government is that doesn't believe in freedom of association, freedom of expression, freedom of commerce? That's more of an indictment of that kind of government than it is of Bitcoin. If your government is afraid of Bitcoin, you should ask yourself, what kind of government do I have? Most liberal governments are not afraid of Bitcoin. They see it as an opportunity for growth and jobs, and they call the industry fintech. the cornerstone of technology. And in fact, they should see it that way.
Fintech, yeah.
This is one of the things that can compete with banks. And banks really need competition, right? They're way too comfortable with their power and established systems, right?
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, learn from the best minds in the world, and connect with a community of passionate people building the best versions of themselves. Just click on the link below, and I'll see you on the inside.
Of dollars. And then in financial services, Chris talked about it earlier, but Bitcoin and things like it is the equivalent of the red pill. Okay? We are entering a completely world of uncharted water right now.
Have you made any investments in Bitcoin?
So, I own Bitcoin in my hedge fund. I own Bitcoin in my fund. I own Bitcoin in my private account. It is a huge deal. It's a huge, huge, huge deal. Because what you're talking about right now is for the next 3 to 5 years, an unbelievably better store of value. It is gold 2.0, right? The value of gold that hedges the world economy about $9 trillion, right? $1,300 an ounce, of which only $100 to $150 is the actual production value. So all the rest of it is imputed, where, Lena, you and I have decided that it's worth $1,300 an ounce. Well, guess what? I can do the same thing with Bitcoin, except now I can do it outside the purview of every single government. It's being used everywhere where you would think it would be used. Russia, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, Venezuela, Argentina, everywhere where you have currency pressure, everywhere where you want to basically shield your assets. And then after that, it'll probably become a payment mechanism. So in all of these three industries, you're talking about trillions of dollars up for grabs. Up for grabs, right? And it's just about trying something.
Right.
And taking a few months to understand what the opportunity is and then hit the scene. And I think that the cool thing is it's easier to know how to code. It's actually useful in a way where you can probably hack something together yourself. You can find folks. And so this is the time where people should be trying really big, crazy things.
Well, that's a great way to end. Thank you so much, Mark.
Hello, Max Wright here, and I have the pleasure of being here with Patrick Byrne, CEO of Overstock. Now, you made some waves in the Bitcoin world earlier this year, 2014, when, as CEO of Overstock, Overstock began accepting Bitcoin. Now, I suspect that had something to do with your libertarian leanings, but can you just share with maybe other companies considering taking Bitcoin what some of the benefits you've seen, and specifically some of the benefits that will accrue to first movers?
Sure. Well, first of all, it turned out to be far less painful than I had imagined. We just got in touch with Coinbase and we integrated in the space of a week. And once it got live, there have been no problems, no hiccups. Nobody even has to, it just runs. It's just another payment method. So it's great. Benefits are you save about 3% on transactions and you eliminate fraud and chargebacks and a bunch of bad things. That's even more savings. So a lot of good business reasons to do it. And as a business with an operating margin of about 1.2%, the ability to save 3% on some transactions is
It's a big deal.
You're quadrupling your bottom line on those transactions. So there's all those business reasons to do it. In addition, there's the case that there's an awful lot of people who are getting into this. It seems to be growing. It seems to be 0.1 to 0.2% of the internet now, but it's growing at a rate of 25% a month. The people who have the wallets are saying the rate of people signing up for new wallets is growing about 25% a month. Well, when something grows 25% a month, it doubles every 3 months, which means in a year it doubles 4 times, or hence is 16 times as big. Point is, it gets real big real quick. If this continues to grow at this rate, in another year or two, we're not talking about fractions of a percent. We're talking about 1%, 2%, 3, 4, 8, 16, etc. So I think you definitely want to be on the ground floor. You want to get early, and you want to be known as one of the merchants who started taking Bitcoin and support this, because clearly Bitcoin has some fervent followers, rabid following, and you want to signal to those people that you understand where they're coming from. So for all those reasons, it's if you're not doing it now, you're going to be doing it in 5 years. So anything you want to be doing in 5 years, you want to be doing now, I think.
Right. Now you've received a tremendous amount of press as a result of this as well. Have you noticed that like affect the bottom line, or has it been more just in branding?
It's more in branding. No clear effect. I mean, we'll sell $10 million worth, I think, in Bitcoin this year, so it'll help roughly about $1 million to the bottom line, maybe 800,000 or something. But so that's nice, happy, feel good about that. But the branding has been, and this I had no idea. But I mean, I just made this offhand remark to a journalist, and it turned into this global story that kind of forced my hand. That we go, I said in late December, I said, yeah, we'll probably accept it by the end of 2014, thinking, well, I'll look into it and maybe we will. But just that remark got tweeted, and just that I realized, gee, something we had to get done.
Having bought it ourselves, you pretty much have to do it through dark pools or offshore. And that was sort of the genesis of our ETF, because a lot of these institutions are unwilling or unable to hold Bitcoin themselves. So creating like basically a trust, similar like a gold trust, was a way that they could get into the investment.
Describe, if you want to, Tyler, the ETF. What did you guys build out at first?
So we filed with the SEC an S1 registration statement. We've had a dialogue with them for close to 2 years now. And the idea is just an on-ramp that's accessible. When people have gold in their portfolio, they usually don't hold a gold bar. They hold a security in a gold trust. So, and a lot of people don't want to deal with the security of securing Bitcoin. It's not an easy task for the average user. So, but for the more DIY crowd who want to actually hold Bitcoin and don't just want exposure to it, but want to use it or for whatever reason, then we started to build Gemini, which is a New York headquartered, US license compliant Bitcoin exchange. So the ETF and Gemini are two different on-ramps for two different customers, if you will. Gemini will be more like a NASDAQ with, it's sort of, the way to think of it is like NASDAQ, E-Trade, and DTC collapse into one. So it has, custody of digital assets as a matching engine. And it's just like buying a security in some ways on NASDAQ. The ETF is a product that will trade on NASDAQ, and you'll buy a share in it just like you buy a share in Apple Computer.
So we're all friends here. Well, these guys we can trust them. Do you have the Bitcoin key inside one of your bodies, like a Jason Bourne style?
I do the brain wallet.
It's a brain wallet?
Yeah. No. My private key is tattooed, no.
What are you guys doing to make sure that all this stuff doesn't go Mt. Gox?
So air-gapped cold storage is pretty much the most secure way to do it. And anybody, I think, any early, people who bought a lot, and I hope they're doing it that way. And with Gemini, we'll have different tiers. You need to have a hot wallet to basically receive deposits and process withdrawals. But the vast majority of funds are held in cold storage. We're using HSMs and multi-sig technology. So we've tried to learn from the past mistakes in Bitcoin. Our first 3 hires were security hires. Our chief security officer was previously the head of security at Airbnb, Google Wallet, and then before that, Microsoft. So we took security first mentality and approach from day one. A lot of times these guys are brought in, as employee, 20 or 30 after the product's been largely built without their oversight, and they have to put out fires and sort of renovate it. We're building with a security first mentality, or we have been from day one, and I think that was a different thing. A lot of the early Bitcoin companies and entrepreneurs weren't really equipped to handle the success that they ended up having. Bitcoin was this really fringe technology that, only geeks, and even a lot of geeks didn't even know about it. It was like, geeks inside of geeks. It was really, really a small community. And then Cyprus happened Cyprus Balin in 2013. Boom, you couldn't turn on CNBC or Bloomberg without, hearing Bitcoin and all.
Bitcoin is something that you've been interested in and supportive of. In fact, one can pay for a tour on Virgin Galactic up to the moon with Bitcoin. I think the Winklevoss twins have said that they would do exactly that. You think this is a currency that's really going to work eventually?
Well, I think it is working, and there will be other currencies like it that may be even better. But in the meantime, there's a big industry around Bitcoin, and you know, people have made fortunes out of Bitcoin. Some people have lost money out of Bitcoin.
It's volatile. It's volatile.
Yeah, but it is quite volatile. But you know, when in volatility, people can make money out of volatile situations.
Why was it important for you to give it sort of that stamp of approval, that endorsement, by saying to the Winklevoss twins, yes, you can pay for the ride with Bitcoin?
Because I'm not foolish. I mean, if people have got lots of Bitcoins and they want to go to space, I'd much rather they spent that money on our spaceship. Whether I keep it in Bitcoins is another matter. But I'd much rather they spent that money on a Virgin Galactic spaceship than on, you know, Elon will be sending people to space one day on Elon's spaceship. So we'll grab the money while it's there.
Elon versus Richard. When will people be able to go to space?
Well, it's been tough. Getting the rockets finished has been tougher than we thought. But we were building two separate rockets. Both came good 2 months ago. Since the spaceship is ready, the mothership's ready, the spaceport's ready, now the rockets are finished. We're now, over the next 2 months, we'll start our aerial flights and then our flights into space. So early next year, we'll finally be up and away.
It's exciting stuff.
The need to move money from place to place, the cost of doing so, the overhead, as you put it, makes me think, believe it or not, of Bitcoin, because some people have said, hey, Bitcoin is the answer to those problems. Are you a believer?
Well, Bitcoin is exciting because it shows how cheap it can be. Bitcoin is better than currency in that you don't have to be physically in the same place, and of course for large transactions currency can get pretty inconvenient. The customers we're talking about aren't trying to be anonymous. You know, they're willing to be known. So the Bitcoin technology is key, and you could add to it or you could build a similar technology where there's enough attribution that people feel comfortable. This has nothing to do with terrorism or any type of money laundering.
The need to move money from place to place, the cost of doing so, the overhead, as you put it, makes me think, believe it or not, of Bitcoin, because some people have said, hey, Bitcoin is the answer to those problems. Are you a believer?
Well, Bitcoin is exciting because it shows how cheap it can be. Bitcoin is better than currency in that you don't have to be physically in the same place. And of course, for large transactions, currency can get pretty inconvenient. The customers we're talking about aren't trying to be anonymous. You know, they're willing to be known. So the Bitcoin technology is key, and you could add to it or you could build a similar technology where there's enough attribution that people feel comfortable. This has nothing to do with terrorism or any type of money laundering.